Okay, that's it recording.
Well, welcome and thank you for tuning into our latest Rapid Expert Forum, and this time on the topic of digital transformation, managing change. I'm Helen Robertson, External Relations Director at eCom Scotland, and today's session we are joined by friends of eCom, Ron Ramage, MD at Merlin ERD, and eCom colleagues Wendy Eady, MD, and Emma Dixon, Learning Technologist. So in a moment, I'll ask Ron to join us and guide us through his experiences at Merlin as they continue to digitally transform their business. And after Ron's session, we'll then have a further chat, and I've got some questions for Ron, Wendy, and Emma too. The adoption of digital technology is becoming a necessity in today's world, changing and improving internal processes and implementing new strategies using digital technologies as well as implementing this effectively is vital. So, as a way of an introduction to Ron, Ron is an MD of Merlin ERD, a leading engineering consultancy and services business focused on the oil and gas sector. He joined the business in July of last year, having spent the previous 10 years as Chief Executive of Flextricity Limited, a business that is no stranger to transformative digital technologies. And for the 10 years before that, Ron was the MD of FST Technologies, a Livingston-based startup that developed and operated the customer communication platform that underpinned the offset banking pioneer, Intelligent Finance. And a wee bit about eCom Scotland. eCom Scotland support businesses and organisations in the private, public and third sector with customised learning solutions. eCom started about 24 years ago. We're normally based in Dunfermline, although not at the moment. There are about 40 of us that are home working and where we continue to support our clients locally, nationally and internationally. So, without further ado, over to you, Ron. Thank you.
Okay, listen, thank you very much for the introduction, Helen, and guys, thanks very much for the opportunity to participate in this session. Really grateful for that. It's a kind of really broad theme, you know, digital transformation, managing change. It's a really broad theme, and you know, when I was kind of preparing some notes for this, I was constantly having to remind myself of, you know, there's digital transformation and there's digitization, and I think there's a clear distinction between the two here that, you know, I was kind of wrestling with right the way through this process. So I think the distinction here in my head is that, you know, from a digital transformation perspective, this is all about you know, a full repositioning of a business or a business process. It's about innovation. It's about, you know, the reinvention of something in the digital environment, and it's not about simply digitizing an existing business process or a business model, you know. So I think that digitizing and that whole transformation piece is different, and I constantly get them confused in my head as to, you know, well, what are we doing here? Is this just digitizing a process, or are we actually trying to transform what we're doing here? And I think, you know, the project we've been working with you guys on, with eCom on, just to look at Merlin's training proposition, is a kind of example where we've probably done a wee bit of both in that. So, you know, Merlin historically has delivered training in a kind of classroom type environment. So we've brought, you know, we've hosted 2-day, 3-day, 5-day courses where, you know, we've provided expert trainers, we've been at a venue, we've had 15 to 20 people in a room, and it's been a kind of traditional classroom-based process. And, you know, what we decided we wanted to do is basically create an online accessible version of that. And, you know, with our training process, you know, the actual onboarding, the booking side of it, the you know, sending out the welcome packs and all this kind of stuff, we were what we ended up doing is just kind of digitizing these processes and building some efficiencies in, and Backbone, using your platform to do that, helped us to build in a bit of a better customer experience. But it was a bit slicker, it was a bit faster, it reduced our internal admin. So the actual, how the clients book, pay and access, we kind of digitized all that. On the actual delivery of the training, I think that's more where we kind of transformed what we were actually doing here. We developed this online proposition that was very different from a classroom-based approach. We had all the self-guided modules, we had the voiced-over presentations, we had the instructor-led elements of it, we had assessments in there, and as I say, I think also recognising that this was going to be delivered digitally as opposed to face-to-face, we were always concerned about that whole client engagement. Piece, how do you hold somebody's attention span through that? How do we have to change our delivery methodology and approach in order to make sure that our online offering was still delivering the kind of high value outcomes, and the candidates and our clients were still benefiting from the experience and the expertise within Merlin. So for me, I think the program that we've done very recently in the organisation here is an example of probably both, where we have transformed the delivery element of it, and we've just digitized the kind of onboarding processes and payment collection and all this kind of stuff. So it's a kind of good example of the distinction between digital transformation and just simply digitizing a process. Our timing was quite fortuitous. I think, Helen, you and I first talked, probably Q3 last year, and we just kicked this process off immediately and within Merlin. So, it was all done pre-COVID, which was really fortuitous for us, because we could hit the ground running the minute all these travel restrictions and things kicked in. And we have, we hit our timelines, and you guys played a part in that. And we hit our budgets, and we have delivered now for BHP in Trinidad. We've done Apache and Premier just closer to home. We've done Beach in Australia. We've done Pan American Energy in Argentina. So it's been really, really good for us that we've still been able to deliver training. I'd like to say that was, a good bit of strategic planning on our behalf, but it wasn't really. It was just luck. But I think the timing was just luck. I think the actual, strategy on what we were trying to achieve with our transforming our training, that wasn't luck. That was thought through at the start. What we had some customer feedback. We asked a few questions of our customer base. We had a couple of engineers internally. So it was Michael and Ross internally who had ideas on how we could basically develop our training into a full e-learning experience for remote participants. But ultimately, what we wanted to do was to basically build a set of e-learning modules and a set of training tools that we could get accredited, so people could go through an accreditation process, and they could go through various stages of that. So there was a strategy behind what we were trying to achieve and what we wanted to transform into. We just, the timing was just fortuitous in that. And I think, strategy around this digital transformation thing is, really, really important. I mean, strategy in any business decision or driving any business change is obviously very important. But, having a digital strategy that informs the nature of that transition, that transformation, and is so important. You have to have that strategic vision. You have to have a kind of a good idea of how it's going to be delivered, and that's where you guys came in to help us shape our thinking on how we could go and deliver that process. And obviously, you need a plan in the background. You know, without a plan, you know, nothing's going to happen, and without you having an idea of how you're going to deliver this, then you know you just get met with the blank expressions in the office to say, well, you know, that's great, but what is it you actually want us to do here, and what is the roadmap, and obviously without knowing the destination. And for us, the destination was, you know, some online training, an online training environment where our clients, our customers could go to, they could work through that at their own pace, they could get some kind of accreditation and certification at the back of it, and we could build on that as they develop their learning and their knowledge and their expertise, without having that you know, end point, that destination in mind. Then, you know, I think you would never drive the transformation. You would just probably digitize a lot of stuff, but you would never really transform what you were doing and make that positive change. I think you know, previous business, Flextricity was a really good example of how having a good strategic vision on that digital transformation actually works. And if you've got it right, you know, it kind of holds fast for a long time within the business. I mean, Flextricity kind of transformed the ways electricity system balancing was done. It was historically the domain of, you know, large licensed power stations that would help National Grid balance the electricity system. And Flextricity turned that on its head a wee bit and allowed small distributed generators to basically participate in that market. And it really did turn the whole market on its head. And the founder of that business, a guy called Alistair Martin, Dr. Alistair Martin, he had a very, very clear strategy. He knew how it was going to be delivered, and you know, we just basically put a plan in place to go do that. And you know, the core of Alistair's strategy didn't change over the 10 years that Alistair and I worked together. We just kind of evolved it, and we just you know, we evolved it as customer engagement increased and as the market kind of developed. But that was a real example of how a whole element of the market was basically disrupted and changed through a digital transformation strategy. So that wasn't about digitizing existing processes. That was about actually coming up with something that was new and disruptive and transformative, and you know, being led by a really strong strategy, a good understanding of how it was going to be delivered, and then a solid plan sitting behind it, which are kind of three core elements to any change, as you know. I think, you know, importantly for me, I think what I kind of learned through the process within Flextricity, and again, you know, been applying some of that in Merlin, is it's not technology led, this stuff. You know, the technology is out there to enable all this to happen. It's not technology led at all. It's absolutely about people, and it's about a mindset. You know, it's about a mindset in the business on this. You know, you need to get that kind of transformation thing happening within an organization, you need, you know, it's like a culture of innovation, but I think more important, it's about you have to have decentralized decision making in the organization. You have to encourage that kind of innovative mindset. And I think, you know, if you've not got that kind of leadership style in the business that fosters that kind of mindset, then you're never going to transform anything at all. You're just going to sit there with, you know, a traditional autocratic management, and it just won't deliver transformation. You'll maybe digitize a lot of stuff, and you'll put in efficiencies and process efficiencies, and you'll make some improvements, but you're never actually going to transform things unless you've got that leadership mindset about innovation and about people and about that kind of culture within the organisation. And the technology, you know, people will find the technology to go and solution the problem. There's no question of that. So it's not about the techie stuff. It's really about having a strong strategy and clearly a digital strategy, and it's about having a culture and a leadership mindset in the business that decisions can be taken, you know, out with that traditional management hierarchy, and that's what kind of fosters it. That's what kind of drives it going forward, and it kind of gathers its own momentum, I think, as you move forward. So, you know, if I'm kind of summarising this, I was trying to jot down some notes earlier. I was kind of, I think, you know, digitising and digital transformation are clearly two very different things, and I constantly get confused about them, and I constantly have to remind myself about them. But there's kind of 4 or 5 easy ways of doing this. I think transformation requires an understanding of what you're transferring, what you're transforming into, and you know, digitizing a process doesn't. You know, you have to have that strategy, that vision of what I want to transform the business or the business process into. And if you've not got that, then you're simply digitizing. That's what you're doing. And I think transformation, digital transformation, you know, if it's not creating a differentiated value proposition, then again, you're back to digitization. You're back to doing a wee bit of process improvement, getting a wee bit of efficiencies, and you might differentiate your proposition in the short term, or maybe on cost or service or something like that. But you're never going to. It's not an actual transformation. I think transformation requires a leadership mindset. So if it's not being delivered or initiated through that kind of leadership within a business, then again, you know, digitization doesn't require that. That's more a kind of management process improvement thing, and digital transformation does. So I think, you know, I think the other thing is that digitization in my head is essential for all businesses. Everybody has to look at their processes, do a bit of process improvement work, and you know, build efficiencies, and you know, just keep the thing moving forward. So digitization is essential. Digital transformation is not essential. It's not essential for a business at all. It's essential if you want to be a pioneer, if you want to innovate, if you want to disrupt something, if you want to actually shift the agenda forward, then digital transformation is really important. And you know, but it's not essential within a business, and some businesses may never ever look at it because it's not appropriate. I think within Merlin, there are really interesting and exciting opportunities for us to look at a broader service proposition and identify areas where we think we can transform things within the marketplace, and you know, a digital strategy around that is something that I'm really keen to go and develop and deliver within the business. Customer always has to be central to it, always has to be meeting that requirement in the marketplace. So, you know, a good bit of customer engagement at the front end absolutely helps and inform that. But yeah, we're early days in the business. We've got a journey to go through with our training proposition, because we've just initiated that and we're just testing that out in the marketplace. There's lots more we can do to develop that as we go forward. But behind the Merlin's training proposition, we've got our engineering consultancy side. We've got our site support side, where we're physically supporting out on site, and we've got other markets. We do oil and gas. We've drilled for scientific research projects. We've drilled for geothermal projects. So there's lots we can do in the business within these market sectors to just move the agenda forward a wee bit. And that's about transformation, not just about digitisation. So there's my 10-minute take at it, guys. Hopefully I haven't confused you now and you're all sitting there going, was it digitisation or was it transformation? I'm not really sure.
Not at all. Well, I have to say that the whole team, we're absolutely delighted to continue on your journey. So from when we met a way back last year, and to see how it's all come to fruition. I'm sure Wendy and Emma have also got their thoughts. We've got about 10 minutes or so that we can actually have a chat about just leadership, digital strategy, Emma, leadership, Wendy. But I think if I can maybe just kind of unpack a couple of bits that you mentioned there, if you don't mind. And one of them was so obviously you've got the technologies from your previous careers, and how you had then the vision of Merlin being digitally transformed, or so digitally digitized. How did you define your digital strategy to your board?
So it was relatively easy to talk to the board about this. I think that this was not a kind of high risk, high cost project. The other thing is I was just in the door of the organisation, and I think they were kind of sympathetic to the new guy and said, "Oh, he's come up with this wacky idea. Let's just go and let's just let him run with it," kind of thing. But it wasn't. It wasn't really any great vision from my perspective. I mean, we had some solid client feedback. When I came into the organisation, I spent a lot of time, talking to the staff. We had formal one-to-ones with everybody, and it was Ross and Michael that I mentioned earlier on that had the idea of getting our training offering fully online, and I think the concern was, Merlin have a very good reputation for the kind of quality and the content of our training, and it was a case of, well, if we're going to do that, how do we make sure that we don't dilute down the value proposition that we can push into the marketplace. But I think it was Ross that was basically saying, look, there's loads of stuff out there already in the market, and ours is of far better quality, and we're missing a trick, guys. So he was saying, hey, we're missing an opportunity, and I think it was Michael that was talking more about, during the one-to-ones, he was talking more about the more strategic of building an accreditation model behind this, and a staged process where people could flow through that process. And ultimately, the prize in our head was, we wanted our end clients to basically say, you're not allowed on my drilling rig unless you've been accredited to Merlin Stage 3 or Stage 4 training. That you want your client to be specifying that. So selling it to the board was not difficult. I think it's been presented to the board in stages. So hey, we've got phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, and we can basically, we can define the costs, and we can define the risks. So the risks are small. in that process. And you know, so it's relatively low risk, relatively low cost, and yeah, I think they felt a bit compelled to just let me run with it.
Just thank goodness they did.
Yeah.
But I suppose, and Wendy, from a leadership perspective, I mean, what Ron was alluding to about the engagement and valuing the internal aspirations for to be within the digital strategy as well. The leadership qualities and are something that are incremental and to be able to drive that change. Would you say?
Yeah, Ron said the same. It isn't all about the techie stuff. Whenever we look at a solution, the technology is only one part of it, and that's why the collaboration and the partnership, the style of working, that's how we approach it, because we understand that there's a whole load more that has to go along with this. I suppose the one thing that I see a lot though is if whether an organisation is going through a transformation or a digitisation, is that level of confidence in going forward and risk management of it, especially now, when we're dealing with COVID, which, is impacting the entire marketplace internationally and domestically. So, if you're looking at differentiating that value proposition or just digitisation for productivity and profitability, people are still needing to find that level of confidence about what technology to put in, what approach to go with, who to go with, and how do they do this and not make a mess of it, basically. So I find that's probably the biggest thing that's holding people back at making these decisions. And I know, Ron, you'd said you just got to go for it sometimes, but there's a lot of organisations that are maybe that are now reserved or cautious. So it's looking at how we can strengthen that level of confidence and putting phased plans in.
And Emma, you are the key lead, working alongside Ron and the senior team whenever it comes to and the partnership. So from the strategy from that day one, Ron had said it was easy to approach the board. It's not always easy to approach the board, but in those phases, it is about the you just never know what's going to come out of a chat, Emma, do you? And that's what you're very good at. Then could you maybe just talk us through about the very initial days until we actually went live with Merlin? That was April, wasn't it? I think, yeah.
Yeah, it was in April. So, as these things often go, as you said, it starts with a conversation. It starts with a conversation about what you're currently doing, your aspirations, what you want to achieve, what the big plan is. And Ron is a testament to having that kind of vision shared by his team of this is where we'd like to be. We're not sure how to get there, but we know where we want to be. We know what we've got internally to support that, and the talent. And as I say, for Ron's business, the talent is key, and they've got such an amazing reputation for the work that they deliver. How are we going to get there? And that's essentially what happened, a conversation that we took. We listened and discussed your strategy, your problems, where you're currently at, where you want to go, and talked about, have you considered this and have you considered that? Shared some experiences from other clients and other things we've witnessed in the marketplace and taking examples from what other people are doing or maybe not done, which is also crucial. What are the gaps? What can we do differently? What's going to make us stand out? And take it from there. And certainly in eCom's role, we were just an enabler. We've provided the technology to enable this change, but the strategy, the direction, the input and the drive has really come from Merlin ERD. And I think success and the kind of uptake that you've had so far is a testament to that vision and hard work.
Yeah, certainly during the kind of restrictions that we've been on, the majority of this year. I mean, we would not have maintained our training revenues this year without having this platform now in place, because rig operators simply are not, they're not going to fly people into Central Houston or into Perth, Australia, or into Kuala Lumpur for us to sit in a hotel and do training with them. They're just not going to do it. They can't do it. And And the other thing that's been kind of fortuitous in the marketplace is a lot of the rig operators are ensuring that their rig crews are fully quarantined before they go out on a rig, and therefore they are isolating for a couple of weeks before, which is just a fantastic opportunity for us to say, well, we'll train them during that period. We'll train them, and we can do that because we can do it remotely. So timing has been very fortuitous for us, and you know it's helped us maintain our training revenues within the business. If we didn't have the platform in place, then you know we would simply not be training people. It's as simple as that. We just wouldn't be doing it. So it has been, you know, as I say, more by luck than by judgment, but it has been really fortuitous that we just timed it, that we got this live in end of April, beginning of May, and we were able to say, well, I know we've got it scheduled, guys, but we're not going to visit you. We're just going to do this on a platform, and it's worked really, really well.
Right, that's great insight. So just as we're coming into our closing minutes of today's session, I just wanted to ask Wendy a question about future technologies, and if there's any other closing remarks that anybody's got just before we do come to the close. So then, Wendy, so when it comes to the change, what do you think is going to be the future technologies then? What's going to be the most influential digital technology to implementing digitization or transformation?
Not an easy question. And if anything, you know, the last 8 months has probably delivered about 10 years worth of digital transformation. So goodness knows what the next year or the next 10 years are going to develop. But I suppose what we're looking at is as a different type of experience that people are expecting. You know, we would normally see certain patterns of behaviour, how people engage with online training. For instance, you know, people, there was a very big trend where people would access these types of things on their commute to work. You know, now the commute to work is non-existent, and actually the blurred lines between work and home life are now are very loose. So people don't actually necessarily want to go and sit and take up maybe a heavy duty training piece in the evening because they've been sitting. You know, these are the types of behaviours that we're starting to see come through. So it's very much about working in the flow and finding these opportunities, like Ron was saying, that self-isolation point of view before they go on the rig. That's a fantastic time to be able to catch people in the right mindset at the right time. And I think that's again and about creating these experiential learning opportunities at the right time for the learner. So there's all those. We're also bringing in more digitisation, more using machine learning, using automation. These are all, they're very loose terms, and what they actually mean when they go into the workforce training is still to be seen. But that's the expectation that's going forward.
Right. So, Emma, Ron, any other closing remarks before we finish?
No, I think you know we'll see the big money getting spent on things like augmented reality and virtual reality type, you know, experiential learning as you were talking about, and you know that'll come in I think reasonably rapidly into the kind of training and learning type environment, but there's big money and big investment behind that, and that's not what we were setting out to do at the start. We were trying to do something that was relatively fast, and what I was keen to do in the business was basically just to get the journey started. You know, it wasn't a case of getting to the end point, because you know that was going to be too big a discussion. That was going to be too big a bold discussion to be having. It's a case of, look, guys, just get started. Let's just do something and define what that is with you know the clear strategy of where we want to ultimately get to. But if you don't start, you're never going to be on that journey. So that's exactly what we did. Is we started, And, you know, we've got a development programme ongoing, which is just going to take us closer and closer to that end goal.
Brilliant. Emma?
And we're the same. We've got our own sort of innovation and development going on as well, with all of products to try and meet some of these needs that that the new workforce are going to need going forward, including the VR, but trying to make sure that it doesn't need the big investment, trying to bring that down into a more affordable level. That's what we were kind of, when we were hunkered down in lockdown, that's what our innovation was focused on. So, and that then ended up, for a fortuitous launch of eNet Reality, which is our VR authoring tool, which came out, then we developed that during our lockdown time. So it's I think we've both benefited from a fortuitous timing of some really good quality investment in 2019 to be able to be, because I don't think we ever expected 2020 to be quite what it was today. So
Agreed.
And Emma, anything to finish?
Just echoing everyone else's sentiments, particularly Ron's about, I mean, in an ideal world, we'd love to see everyone just go for it and just take that chance and get started. But in reality, there is a lot of apprehension and worry and sometimes a bit of fear around making such big changes and investments. But what I would say is an important part is to have your strategy, do your research, which Ron clearly did with his one-to-ones with his team, and he got that valuable input, and then find the right partner. Don't be afraid to challenge them, just like we challenge our clients. It is a collaboration, it is a partnership, and it's about growing together. And I think that's the most important things to take into consideration when you're looking at undertaking a digital transformation.
thank you.
Brilliant. Well, thank you. That's us to the end of today's session. Thank you to Ron, Wendy and Emma for a very insightful and refreshing session. So that's for this Rapid Expert Forum. We do hope that you've found it useful. Thank you, everybody, for your time.
All right, thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Cheers,
Bye-bye.
bye.